Okay, so I want to do a video where I'm not speeding things up or editing them. I just want to give you sort of a real-time feel for what it's like to operate the armature. And I think most of it can be explained by just watching, so I won't be doing much talking other than chiming in whenever there's something important to note. That elbow joint up there that looks like an H, you could see there, is responsible for flexing and extending the forearms and the rotation of the forearms. So that's primarily what you would use to try to get the hand anywhere you want to. You can see the bottom of the feet have 3 magnets, and the twisting of the leg has been moved further down so it doesn't interfere with the shape and profile of the leg as much. Notice also how the hip joint, the left hip joint, is flipped upside down right now. By doing that, I'm able to extend the range of motion to places I couldn't otherwise if it was just in its default position where it is now. You can use that trick in the shoulders as well to create crossed arm positions or open arms or arms that extend in front or behind the body. Now, while the magnets are pretty strong, because the armature is so heavy, you can only push it so far before it tips over. So some balancing on your part is necessary, though the magnets help quite a bit. You saw there how I expanded the hips, and the whole point of those clips there is to give you sort of an organic control over the posture, but also allow you to create wider or narrower hips so that the mannequin is essentially androgynous and it can represent the male figure or the female figure. When you set off to pose the armature, remember that you'll probably want to take your time with it, because posing in and of itself is an art form. Here you can see how by flipping the joint around, I'm able to extend the arm behind or in front of the figure, whereas I couldn't from its default position. There, if I wanted to open the arms, I'd either have to flip them underneath the clavicle like I did there, or I could also flip them over the top. When handling the hands, you want to make sure that if you're turning the hands, to hold on to the palm of the hands, because the fingers are pretty delicate. So you don't want to be twisting the forearm by grabbing onto the fingers. Notice here that I'm hyperextending the back, but most of this rotation happens right there at the hips. Also notice how I'm firmly holding onto the feet so that I can keep them in place while I manipulate the rest of the armature. People often get confused and they think seated positions and hyperextended positions like this happen entirely on the spinal column, but the reality is a lot of that rotation happens at the hips. It's leg flexibility more than anything that allows you to get that contortionists are able to get into these postures. This spinning stand is available on our storefront. It's well suited for the larger armature because the stand itself is heavier than the armature, and so it helps it from tipping over because it has so much weight. Here I'm demonstrating the same principle, but just the other direction. So now the legs are really bent forward, and it's showing, giving the illusion of a forward stretch. Even though those clips are primarily intended for adjusting the width of the hips, you can definitely play with them and use them to enhance the posture. It gives you sort of additional lateral control over the center of gravity. So like you saw me do there, I tilted the entire figure over to the right so it was resting most of its weight over where the foot is planted. And most of that movement happened where the clip was touching where the clip is connected to the left hip joint. Here I'm showing that principle even further by turning both clips at the same time. I'm giving the illusion that the hip is having this extreme sort of lateral rotation. I'm kind of extending the range of motion of the spine by adjusting the position of the hips. It's kind of a cheat, but it definitely allows you to get really graceful poses with the character. In many ways, you'll find that when you're posing the armature, it feels like you're sculpting a pose. I think a lot of that has to do with the design and how the joints are laid out. So take your time with it because it really is an art form. And don't take for granted the importance of getting anatomy and human locomotion right. I mean, even though all the joints are placed anatomically in the right location, the proportions are accurate, you still have to take the step of creating a pose that has a sense of weight, has emotional quality to it. So hopefully this video was helpful and you got a good feel for how to operate the armature. If you want to take a closer look at some other items like the hands, there's a video devoted to the hands, and you can find that in the Kits and Bits page, or even in the Ranger product page. Click on the hand product, and there will be a video there going over some tips on how to pose the hands. Thanks, guys. Bye.